समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
There's been a lot of discussion, anger also, about the fact that 3 Indians have been killed in an American strike on a merchant vessel off the Gulf of Oman in the general Hormuz area. General Hormuz area where war is going on and 2 competitive blockades are going on. Iranians have ordered their blockade, they're enforcing it. Americans have ordered their own and they are enforcing it. In that process, 3 ships with Indians on board have been hit. Remember, I said this very carefully. 3 ships with Indians on board. I did not say 3 Indian ships. However, in the process, in these attacks, 3 Indians have been killed. This is Patnala Suresh, who is chief engineer, Shivanand Chaurasia, engine fitter, and Aditya Sharma, deck cadet. All 3 were killed on a ship called MT. MT is for motor tanker. MT Setebello. Now, this has led to a lot of outrage. Americans have hit Indian ships. How can Americans do this to India? America is India's friend, etc., etc. Government of India is not protesting strongly enough. Twice the Shahjadi affairs of US Embassy has been summoned. The ambassador's been in Kazakhstan. Diplomatic protests have been lodged. However, what exactly is the factual situation? So let me start this out. I have to be careful and stick only to facts. I will start this out by leaning back and quoting Mao Zedong. So Mao Zedong immortalized something that a Chinese historian, that's historian called Ban Gu. He said something in praise of an ancient Chinese scholar. And that something was learn truth from facts. Learn truth from facts is the exact English translation of the Chinese expression shi shi chu shi. Shi shi chu shi. Learn truth from facts. Now that I've at least tried to pronounce the exact Chinese expression for seeking truth from facts, let me also say this in Hindi. सच्चाई को तथ्यों से जानिए. Mao Zedong made it popular in the 1930s, and then onwards, it became a kind of main ideological and political slogan of the Chinese Communist Party. So leave the Chinese and the Communist Party aside, but just look at the logic. Seek truth from facts. What are the facts in this case? So first of all, there are 3 ships involved. That is MT Setebello, where the 3 deaths took place, MT Marivex, MT Jalveer. None of these 3 ships has overt Indian ownership. These ships usually have a web of ownerships and you have to really get underneath 3 or 4 or 5 layers to figure out who owns what. But these are ships that fly flags of convenience. As we go ahead, I will explain to you also what are flags of convenience and why they are used. So MT Setebello is a 47,000. It's the biggest of the 3 ships. Tanker, 47,198 tons. MT Marivex, also hit and disabled, but no injuries in that case. Everybody rescued. From the ships after Setebello, everybody's been rescued safe. From Setebello also, besides these 3, all others have been rescued, mainly by the Omanese Coast Guard. MT Marivex is 12,807 tons, say almost 1/4 the size of Setebello. And MT Jalveer, at least the name sounds Indian there, MT Jalveer is the smallest of all, 6,395. It's a bitumen asphalt carrier. In fact, at this point, if you see some of the financial papers, India's construction industry, particularly highway building, etc., they are suffering from the shortage of bitumen because that's also a byproduct of crude production. So this is a bitumen and asphalt carrier. These 3 have been hit. Now, what is their ownership? If you go backwards, Setabello is owned by two companies, both based in Dubai, Aqua Aurora Shipping Line and IOS Marine FZE. Aqua Aurora Shipping Line is like the owner and IOS Marine FZE is the operator. In fact, it's the IOS Marine FZE as the manager which has written a 3-page very angry statement or letter saying that there should be investigation, our ship was fully compliant with everything, we were given no warning, these missiles were fired into our ships. What Americans are doing is they are firing these Hellfire missiles into these ships' engine rooms or in their power plants to disable the ships so they cannot move. The general principle is initially they warn these ships to divert them. If they don't agree to be diverted, then they are disabled. Americans have disabled 9 ships by now and 135 have been redirected by them. The American argument is that we've only disabled physically by firing at the ships whose captains or whose management had refused to follow our orders. The managers of Setabello say they were given no such warning and there should be an inquiry into this. That is the first. The second one, Marivex, that is owned by a company that sounds Indian but is based in Panama. And from whatever research I can find, it's a shell company, so we don't know who the real owner is. Arihant Shipping Company it is, based in Panama. One of the 3 ships, MT Mavericks, was already sanctioned in 2025 by the Americans. The other 2, they say, were non-compliant, that they were carrying Iranian hydrocarbons and they refused to follow instructions. These 2 were sanctioned ships. The third one, Jalveer, the smaller ship, the latest to be hit, no injury fortunately, that was not sanctioned, but the Americans say it was operating in a non-compliant manner, which means it was not listening to their instructions, it was not answering their questions, maybe it had switched off its automatic identification systems. That's what these ships do when they try to run a blockade, and a lot of them are trying it. In fact, a very large shadow fleet has come into place because of the sanctions on Russian crude as well. And Iranian crude has always been under sanctions, and because of that, a flourishing industry of shadow fleets or dark fleets has been running. Jalveer was not sanctioned, but the Americans say that they caught them making phone calls to many Iranian ports, and also they caught them in ship-to-ship transfers on high seas. That's what ships do to hide the identity of one. The crude or the bitumen in this case is transferred to the other. That can be easily done from ship to ship. That is the allegation that the Americans have made. So the 3 ships, not Indian-owned, this Jalveer, the smaller one, that is owned by a company called Jal Shipping or Jal Shipping. I don't know how to pronounce it. The spelling is Jal, but based in Liberia. Now, Liberia and Panama, the owner-operator of one of these companies is based in UAE, one in Panama and one in Liberia. Panama and Liberia are both countries which allow quite a bit of this shadow fleet business. They also sell flags of convenience. So that is our next important fact. Flag of convenience. What is a flag of convenience? The flag of convenience literally means that the flag that a ship flies of a country chosen entirely for the owner's legal or financial convenience, which means a country that has very poor labor laws, does not put any minimum wages for sailors, safety laws, environmental laws, the quality or upkeep of your ship, so you can cut corners everywhere and thereby run a lucrative business. Many of those running shadow fleets or dark fleets actually use flags of convenience. Flag of convenience is something that a country just sells to you because every ship in international waters must fly a country's flag. And the principle is that once you have a country's flag, that country's laws apply on board that ship. Now, what many countries have done is they've taken it one step forward. They've also created legal convenience with this, which means they have a system called open registry, whereby you can bypass any strict laws, high taxes, environmental rules, safety audits, and you can get cheap labor. You can save you can save up to 60% of the cost on shipping labor. That is how this flags of convenience business flourishes all over the world. Once again, I told you, it's really boomed now with the rise of these shadow fleets, mainly tankers, because of the sanctions on Russia and on Iran. Now, the three ships hit. Whose flags were they carrying? Setebello and Marivex. They were carrying the flag of a country called Palau. Now, Palau, if you really enlarge the map of the Pacific or South Pacific, you might even be able to stop it. It's actually 340 tiny microscopic islands. That is what you will find in South Pacific in what is called the Micronesian region. It's a country with a population, hold your breath, in 2025 of 17,633 people. That small. Its GDP is just about 320 billion. A lot of that is aid. But one of the important sources of revenue for that country is giving out these flags of convenience, which is you bring your ship, we shall not ask you any questions, we'll give you our flag, you fly our flag, not many rules or laws will apply to you, you pay us a fee for this. So two of them, Setebello and Marivex, had the Palau flag of convenience. Jalvir had the flag of convenience from Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau is a very poor country in West Africa. Very poor country of about 2 million people, small country of about 2 million people, total GDP of about 2 billion, per capita GDP inside of under $1,200. So very poor country, once again sells a lot of flags of convenience, and that becomes a source of income. Now, flags of convenience. There are many countries who use flags of convenience by way of a business stream. Panama was the first. Panama is also the largest. Very often you will find stories about large oil tankers, super tankers, and story would say Panamanian flag. So Panama is the one that started this business, and I will tell you very interesting context in which the business started, and they now lead the world. They also lead the world in ship abandonment. That means many of these owners who take these flags of convenience, they don't particularly have a commitment to the ship. Things are not going all right. They abandon the ship and they abandon the crew also and leave the crew to their own devices. So Panama routinely tops the world in ship abandonment. So Panama flagged ships are routinely abandoned by their owners along with the crew. Panama last year topped the world, as it usually does, with 68 ship abandonments, which means the owners have disappeared. Nobody knows whose ship it is. So ship is there, the crew are there, they can do what they want with the ship. Similarly, Palau, whose flag two of these ships that were hit in the Gulf, they carry, Palau has seen 37 ship abandonments. It's been the second highest last year. Once again, as I search deeper, I go to the website of International Transport Workers Federation, ITWF. They've listed the 4 countries whose flags are the worst at sea. That is Togo, Cook Island, Sierra Leone, remember blood diamonds, and Palau. So Palau actually features among the 4 worst countries among those who give out their flags of convenience, because they don't bother what the owners are doing. They don't bother about the crew welfare or ship safety or even abandonment. ITWF also says that ships registered under the flags of these countries, Togo, Cook Island, Sierra Leone, and Palau more significantly now, in these ships, 5,203 deficiencies were found or detentions made in European ports. Please see this tweet from ITWF on your screens. This tweet also has the flags of these 4 countries. ITWF says that these flags risk seafarers' lives. These flags of convenience take money from ship owners to register ships nobody would use, because these ships are unsafe. In fact, on pulitzercenter.org, I find a story from France, from Nice in France, and this is a statement there at a conference by Surangel Vips, the president of Palau, who has promised to carry out improvements in their flag of convenience process, which also means he acknowledges what is wrong with the process. Now, I will tell you, I told you earlier that this process started in Panama and how. America was the first country to actually bring in very stringent laws and very stringent regulations for the welfare of their merchant marine, of their shipping crews. That increased the costs for American shipping, and they found it difficult to compete with European shipping and elsewhere where laws were not so strict and wages were not so high. So in any case, they had started using some of these business sort of in a more amorphous manner. Formally, this came into being in 1922. In 1922, because prohibition was imposed in America, two American cruise liners took on Panamanian registry. So they took the Panamanian flag and registry so they could legally serve liquor to their passengers or guests. An American flagged ship could not do it. That was 1922. And since then, Panama has built a big business of it. Then there is Liberia. Liberia has taken this process to another level. They've outsourced their flag selling to a company in the US, that is the Liberia Corporation. That company sells the flags, and after deducting its expenses, its own profits, its own wages, they give the rest of the profits. They give a share of the profits to Liberia. So Liberia has to do nothing. Liberia also is not a country that's in very good shape. When I was a bit younger and more innocent, I used to think Liberia must have a lot of oil because every other tanker that you read about has a Liberian flag, which means Liberia must be producing all this oil. No, that's not the case. Liberia is a big flag-selling country. Liberia is a big flag-selling country. Then there are others. I told you about Cook Island, Sierra Leone, there is Marshall Island, and many other countries like that. You may ask me, where am I getting this data on ships from? You can check out, and I'm sharing a link with you. You can check out the 2025 review of maritime transport from the website of United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or what is commonly known as UNCTAD. Now, many questions have arisen. For example, aren't these blockades illegal? Now, this is wartime. In wartime, countries do blockade others. You cannot go to a court of law. Iran ordered a blockade, Americans ordered a blockade. Both have been firing at ships or trying to block ships or forcing a turnaround by ships that they think do not have their permission to cross the strait. Iranians have done it, the Americans have done it. So far, 13 Indians have lost their lives in this process since this war began. These 13 Indians include the last 3, which were killed by the Americans. The earlier 10 were all killed in Iranian attacks, some on ships, 3 in earlier Iranian attacks on ships, and then in Iranian missile and drone attacks on Oman, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait, where 2 have died. This is how these 13 Indians have died. Indians also constitute a very large majority of the people working and living, expatriates working and living in the Arabian Gulf. Now let's look at global shipping. Global shipping relies a great deal on workers from India. India is the largest supplier of global shipping. Global shipping, human resources. 12% of all global shipping is manned by Indians. That is more than 3 lakh people. More than 3 lakh Indians work on these ships. Then there are Bangladeshis, there are the Filipinos. Many of them are unfortunately desperate enough to work on these badly kept ships flying the flags of convenience and running dangerous missions. That is what these crews seem to have got caught in. And it's because of the danger involved in these missions that premiums for these ships are running sky high. Premiums are running sky high. No well-known Western insurer or their consortiums are willing to insure these ships. So these ship owners go to obscure non-Western insurers. That's also very dodgy insurance as well. And that's why the lives of these crew members are even more endangered. In fact, I would even suggest, just an editorial idea, that just like in the past, there used to be protector of immigrants who had to stamp your passport and endorse it, whether you could go overseas to work without facing exploitation. Similarly, India needs regulation whereby those qualified to work on ships outside are prevented from working on these badly maintained, dodgily owned ships carrying out dangerous missions. Blockades in war are a way of life. Legality or illegality doesn't matter. And we Indians cannot talk because in 1971 war, we declared a blockade on all of Pakistan's ports, quite successfully so. Reading up on this story, in fact, took me backwards to something, a story that I had done in 1985. This was the 15th August 1985 issue of India Today magazine. You will see some pages on your screen. Now, this was a story about two Indian ships, MV Nitya Nanak and MV Nitya Ram, owned by a company called Mani Shipping. Both ships disappeared suddenly. They disappeared suddenly, coming in from Thailand towards India, 90 kilometers from the coast. Nobody knows what happened. It seems as if nobody knows until now. 44 crew members disappeared. I went to Mumbai to investigate this. I went to meet the crew members' families. Nautical advisor, Government of India said there is no way these two ships can disappear just like that out of the blue in perfectly good weather. The owner, HS Mani, I went to see him. He said this must have been bad weather. I have some satellite evidence that this was bad weather, and he sounded quite blasé. And I said, how can you say that? Because all the global data tells you that weather was fine. He said, no, there was bad weather, and maybe the master of MV Nanak was facing bad weather. And he asked the master of MV Ram to come to his help. And at that precise point, a cloudburst took place and both the ships went down. From whatever I know, those 44 sailors have not yet come back. If somebody has, then please do let me know. I will put reporters on the job to work backwards on this story. Once again, this again reminds us, this episode in the Gulf, that shippers lead dangerous lives also, and that shipping is also a dangerous profession. That merchant shipping also, it may look genteel and boring, but it's a dangerous profession, particularly when you get in a war zone, and even more so when you get caught in a war zone on ships which are already sanctioned, or which are already sanctioned, or which are already sanctioned, or which are defying the blockades. Because in doing that, profits are very high, but at the same time, risks also come wrapped in those profits. Now, what I have done is I brought all these facts for you. So please lean back, absorb all of these facts, then decide whether you want to get angry, how angry do you want to get. No life should be lost of anybody's, least of all those of civilians who get caught in a combat zone. However, as I started this episode, remember that line from Mao Zedong: seek truth from facts.